Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again. And that must mean that I am Professor Robert E. G. Black, and this is the Groundhog Day Project.
It's one of those infinite time loop situations you might have heard about.
It's a thing where the same day keeps happening.
Time.
I wake up every day right here, right in Punxsutawney, and it's always February 2nd.
The last revision is what counts, apparently.
We're in minute 92 of Groundhog Day. The Bachelor auction. Phil is on stage. Buster's the auctioneer. And while the bidding started with Gertie, it is now between Nancy and Doris. It's funny that Gertie's out. She bid $5 and too rich for her blood once they jumped to 10. Gertie and Sarah, they are looking for someone though. And I feel like they're looking together. We'll get to that at the end of this minute. First, before we get into this auction, I said last minute I was going to tell you about an auction we did in high school. It was a fundraiser for our class. It was for the senior class. My school was tiny. It was a private school owned by the cult church that I grew up in. And our class, because it was very small and also because we were pretty good at what we were doing, was good at fundraising. Our senior trip was fully paid for. We didn't have to put in any money for the room and board or for the travel expenses. We just had to bring money for souvenirs. And even some of our meals were paid for, which was cool. We went to Hawaii for our senior trip. My senior class was 13 people. So it's not like we had a huge amount of money, but per person, we had more than other classes usually did. And one of our final fundraisers we did, I believe this was in the spring of 93. So about the time this auction is happening, actually. Maybe a month or two later. Well, no, not the time this auction is happening. This auction is happening in 1991, but you're seeing it in 93. That's when the movie was out in theaters. It came out February 13th, 1993. So sometime probably in April or May. It was one of the last fundraisers we did. Maybe the last fundraiser we did. Basically auctioning off the seniors. We did it during lunch. So that meant you only owned that person, put owned in air quotes, for about 3 hours. And because they were the seniors, or we were the seniors, you didn't necessarily have them during class, just in between. But you could. The agreement was if you told them to do something, like Buster said, as long as it's legal, they're supposed to do it. So if you told them, in between the two classes, be at this room to carry my books, we had to come and carry your books. I was bought by a friend of mine. His name was Bobby Gannon. He was a freshman, and he didn't make me do much, but he did put a chain around my neck, which was pretty funny. And then what was funny is he didn't even get much out of it other than that, because I had work study senior year where after lunch I went to work across the street in the editorial department for our magazines that the church put out. So I disappeared for a couple hours anyway, although I did come back after school for Coreliers. And at that point still was wearing the chain. I kept the chain on to go to work. I don't remember how much money I went for, but I remember all I really had to do was wear a chain. But hey, it was a fundraiser, and it was a potential fundraiser that they could have repeated the next year. The junior class could have done when they were seniors. And it could be a fun sort of end-of-year thing, like buying ad space in a yearbook to congratulate people. Not that ours did that, because our yearbook was fairly tiny and was paid for by the church. But anyway, this auction. This minute begins with Nancy saying 20, then Doris 25, Nancy 30, Doris 35, Nancy 40, Doris 45, Nancy 50, Doris 55, Nancy 60. And by the time she says 60, we can see in the background blurry that Rita has her checkbook out already. She's reading, she's checking. And Buster says, I'm bid 60. Do I hear more? And then Rita says, the answer that I said on stage at the Groundhog Breakfast in Woodstock, Illinois, February 2nd, 2014. They asked how much does Rita buy Phil for, and I said $339.88. And earlier this season of the show, I remember that number. Again, and I don't watch this movie every day, every year anymore. So that I still remember so much specifics and dialogue from this is remarkable. I remember extras' names at all, or actors' names at all, like Brenda Pickleman or Les Podwell, Andon Walsh. I didn't even talk about who Fred was. I talked about who Debbie was a couple minutes ago. But Fred, man, this is his first movie. It's freaking, who did he go on to play? He played Zod in freaking Man of Steel. Probably his biggest thing that most people know him from, but he's in tons of stuff. Michael Shannon. He's in freaking Shape of Water, big Oscar movie. This was his first film. He's no longer really in there. I don't know if Fred and Debbie are in the crowd during the auction sequence. I don't know how long they filmed this auction, this whole banquet / auction stuff. How many camera setups are there? Not that many, but a few. She bids that, which presumably is the current balance of her checkbook. Better hope there's no bills coming out, no checks out in the mail, or she's going to have a problem. Or maybe payday is... No, actually, this is 1991, February 2nd. I believe February 2nd is a Tuesday?
It was a Saturday. So maybe this isn't the balance of her checkbook. Maybe this is the amount of her most recent paycheck the day before. Is that a lot of money in 1991? I don't remember.
Buster says, I don't think we can accept any more bids. I think that's sold to the little lady for $339.88. Congratulations. And so Rita steps up to the stage, puts her hand out. Even her fingers move a little like she's reaching for Phil. And it's sort of this, it's a romantic image, reaching up for the other one, and Phil comes into frame, hand first, grabbing her. Hand first, keep in mind, is the way he was introduced in the film. Was his hand in front of a blue screen. I believe that was his right hand and this is his left, but same difference. She is buying his hand. This is metaphorical marriage. This is definitely the romantic story, rom-com trope of reifying male-female relations in the end. Which is then funny because when we start into the next thing, because Buster's like, okay, bachelors, who's next? And Larry jumps up on stage. He, of course, wants Nancy to buy him, but you know who looks immediately excited? Gertie and Sarah, which isn't exactly reifying the male-female thing. He's more of like a potential throuple going on there. Or just a boy toy for the ladies tonight. Buster looks at him weird, which is so rude. He says, all right, now, what am I bid for this guy? Do I hear $1.50? They just sold their first person for over $300, and he's starting at $1.50. That's so sad. I'm so sorry, Larry, that this happened to you. I hope you had a good time with Gertie and Sarah, and I hope the three of you are very happy. Or were until they died. Oh no, are they dead? I don't know if the actresses are dead. I don't know offhand if the ladies playing Gertie and Sarah are still alive, but maybe they died, and then Larry had to, find someone new again. But maybe he was happy for a while with these two ladies. Or maybe they just had a really good night. And then Nancy probably buys, what's his name? Daniel Riggs, the actor I talked about a few minutes ago, who was the first one to get pushed forward for the Bachelor auction. Anyway, that is all I have for minute 92. The auction is over. No, the auction's not over. Phil's part of the auction is over. Larry's going to get bought next minute. And then we're going to get to, do we get out of? Yeah, we're going to get out of the banquet next minute. We are in the final turns. The time loop is winding down. I mean, technically the loop is over, but I don't think really that the universe, or whatever you want to call it, that is controlling the loop, I don't think it's made up its mind about Phil yet. But I think what Rita just did is arguably the trigger for him being out. It's not that she comes to the room. It's not that he makes the gesture of carving her face in the snow. It's not that he doesn't have sex with her even, they just fall asleep. It's just that she bought him. She bought his freedom. He was a slave to time and now he's a slave to her. Haha. Which is, again, potentially reifying that male-female relation thing. I won't tell you to go buy any people or sell any people, but my advice until next episode is find who you want to be with and, I don't know, let them know, but not in like a creepy way. That's bad advice. Don't just let people know. It's awkward. I don't know how people do things. I really don't. I was the awkward guy who would just tell someone, or would absolutely not tell someone because it was too scary. Sometimes both, weirdly enough. Be better than me, I guess, is my advice.
I knew you were going to say that.
This has been a production of Lemming Drops Studio. You can find links to more at lemmingdrops.com or join the Facebook group Lemming Drops Studio Tour. Also, you can support all my shows at patreon.com/lemmingdrops.
What is wrong in the end which never comes? Or which comes again and again lapping, like waves. Since the Big Bang set everything in motion, everything that happens in this universe has to be the way it is. Particles unfolding the way they're destined to.
How do you sleep at night? You've never seen Groundhog Day?
Yeah, you know Groundhog Day is not a documentary.
Remember when Groundhog Day was just a movie?